Imagine, you're 8 years old, you're home alone. All of a sudden you hear a faint scratching coming from outside of your house. It stops, only to start again somewhere else. You can't seem to figure out where it's coming from. You hear it getting louder and louder. You peek out your living room window, slowly moving the curtain out of the way when BAM! A three-legged creature with giant eyes is staring right at you! What could this have been? Well, we're about to find out tonight on Midnight Cryptid Club. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midnight Cryptid Club. I'm your host, Natalie Rose, and if you're not a member of the club yet, hit that like button for me and be sure to subscribe because we dive into a different monster every Friday at midnight. Now, tonight's creature is a silly little guy. I don't know how else really to describe him. It's definitely one of the sillier cryptids I've researched, at least to me. Though, I guess he's still terrifying in his own way. Today we're going to be talking about the Enfield Horror, a monster that terrified an Illinois town, Enfield, in 1973. Now, it's important that we make a distinction between the Enfield Horror, or monster that we're talking about today, and the Enfield Haunting, sometimes also called the Enfield Poltergeist. The latter is a story of a haunting in Enfield, UK, which has had a lot of media surrounding it, like a BBC miniseries, and it actually also served as the basis for The Conjuring 2, my favorite horror movies, by the way. That was a series of paranormal events across the pond. But not what we're here to talk about today. Let's jump into discussing the Enfield Horror. Today, we're in Enfield, Illinois, where Henry McDaniel, a 50-year-old World War II veteran, had just returned home with his wife to find his children terrified. They said that something had been scratching all around the house, trying to get inside. Soon McDaniel himself also heard faint scratching sounds, as if something were trying to claw its way through the front door. A logical man, McDaniel believed that it must have been a stray cat trying to come in, or maybe even a bear. He grabbed his .22 and a flashlight and opened the door. Okay, isn't it funny though? I'd understand in Van Meter, Iowa, that we talked about last week, because no one lived there and it was 1903, but even in the 70s, everyone in the Midwest is just always strapped. Love you guys. McDaniel grabbed his gun and slowly opened the door. On the other side, about a dozen feet away between two rose bushes, was the strangest creature he had ever seen. He described it as about 4 or 5 feet tall, with an almost humanoid body covered in gray fur. It had stubby arms and large pink eyes the size of flashlight lenses. It stood on 3 legs. When it saw McDaniel, it hissed and leapt across the lawn into the night. McDaniel shot after it, claiming, "When I fired the first shot, I know I hit it." Local authorities were soon called, and when they arrived at the house, the only evidence they found that anything had happened were some scratches through the screen door and a couple on the side of the house. They also found a series of dog-like prints in the sand at the side of the yard. The unusual prints were about 4 inches wide, almost looked like dog tracks, but had 6 toe pads. And even more intriguingly, represented a 3-foot animal, with one being slightly smaller than the others. Allegedly, a few days later, McDaniel had another run-in with the creature. He watched it scuttle down some nearby railroad tracks as he watched it from the front door. There was another notable sighting that allegedly happened earlier that same day on April 25th. A 10-year-old boy named Greg Garrett was playing in his yard when all of a sudden a 3-legged monster jumped out and attacked him. The creature apparently tore his sneakers to shreds and left him running to his parents in tears. However, some reports have claimed that sighting was a hoax, so we're not sure how reliable that is. The town was soon overrun with reporters and monster hunters looking for the creature. So if our friend, the Enfield Horror, was real, he'd stand about 4 to 5 feet high, as reported, so a little shorter than me. And that'd be pretty scary to run into in the middle of the night. Some theories believed that McDaniel had seen what might have been a kangaroo. This would make sense with the arms, and at least 2 of the legs, and the height as well. Kangaroos are actually very tall, with the eastern gray kangaroo standing at about 6.6 feet tall when fully stretched out on their hind legs. A wallaby may be a better comparison, coming in at around 3 feet tall, but McDaniel claimed that he knew what a kangaroo looked like. He had actually kept one as a pet during his army days while stationed in Australia. And besides, why would there be a kangaroo in Illinois? There are a few mammalian features of the Enfield Horror beyond the fur. The appendages in the eyes actually seem to be more related to insects or arachnids. The eyes seem, at least in the artistic renderings, closer to the eyes of flies. Flies have compound eyes, which means that each of their eyes is made up of thousands of tiny lenses. Each of those lenses works almost as its own individual eye, allowing the fly to see all around it. From a distance, this also gives their eyes that big, bulging, faceted appearance that's pretty creepy. They're good at detecting motion and can even function well in low light, meaning that the monster could have quickly avoided McDaniel's shot and operated well. Certain flies even have a reddish color in their eyes due to pigments within their eye structure. As for the 3 legs on the creature, most creatures are naturally symmetrical. There are bipedal creatures, like ourselves, quadrupeds like dogs and cats, hexapods like insects, and even millipedes that have a little over 1,000 legs. Evolutionarily, it would be really difficult for an animal to evolve to have 3 legs, so this makes our creature even more interesting. There have been previous mutations that have caused extra limbs, like the case of a 3-legged duck in China, or perhaps it was a quadruped that lost 1 leg, maybe favored the third a little less. A mutation may be more likely to explain that extra toe on the footprint and potentially an extra leg of a bipedal creature, but there's no way to know for sure. The last known sighting of the monster was when Kokomo, Indiana radio host Rick Rainbow claimed to have seen the creature and gotten a recording of its screech on tape. However, it seems like the screech recording was never recovered, so it's a little doubtful. Cryptozoologist Loren Coleman also went hunting for the creature and allegedly heard it screech in the night while investigating the area. He has an entry about it in his book, Mysterious America, which we'll have linked in the description. Poor Henry McDaniel actually was threatened with arrest, as he would not cease to spread stories about the monster. He stuck by his initial report and never wavered. Was it real? Was it a hoax? We may never know, but it's a chilling story nonetheless. Well, that actually wraps us up for today, but next week is the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. Latin American culture is rich with fascinating folklore full of mysterious creatures, mischievous spirits, and spine-chilling legends. For the next 4 weeks, we will be diving into a different cryptid from Latin American folklore, and I am so excited to be sharing these stories with you all, because they're the ones that I've grown up with. If you've heard of the Enfield Horror before, I would love to hear about it below, and I will see you next week. For now, good night, sleep tight, and don't let the monsters bite. The unusual, yeah, pop it up 1 bit, whoop, 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 between 2 rows, yeah, beautiful.